Level 1, negative balance. The number on your screen has a minus sign in front of it. You stare at it like it might disappear if you blink. It doesn't. You overdrafted by $4, just $4. A coffee you forgot was scheduled to charge. The bank doesn't care that it was $4. The bank cares about the math. And the math says you went under. $35. That's the fee. The penalty for being broke is that you become more broke. The fee is bigger than the mistake. You stare at it and feel something that isn't anger, just tired. Then another charge processes. A $7 subscription you forgot to cancel. The system sees you're already negative and charges you another $35. Now you owe $77 to a bank that just took $35 from a $4 mistake. You try to call. The hold music loops 3 times. A voice answers, reads from a script, tells you fees can't be reversed at this time. You ask to speak to a manager. The voice says someone will call back within 48 hours. Nobody calls back. The next morning, your rent payment fails. The landlord charges a $75 late fee. Your phone bill bounces and adds another $25. The math you couldn't fix at $4 is now $200 deep and growing in directions you didn't authorize. You skip lunch on Wednesday, not by choice. You walk past the place you usually eat and keep walking like you weren't going there anyway. Your coworker invites you to grab food after work. You say you already ate. You didn't. Hunger at this level isn't physical, it's silent. It's the kind nobody sees because you've learned to perform full. You walk into the branch on Friday. The teller looks at her screen and her face changes in a way you've seen before. Not anger, not pity, something colder. You watch yourself stop being a person on her screen and start being a flag, a category, a risk score with shoes. You leave without saying what you came to say, because somewhere between the $4 and the unreturned phone call and the unpaid rent, you stopped feeling like a customer. You started feeling like a problem. Level 2, $200. You're not negative anymore. You pulled the account back. 20 hours of overtime to make $200. Stay positive for 1 week. You did it. Nobody clapped. Nobody noticed. The bank notices, but not in a good way. The maintenance fee hits anyway. $12, sometimes $15, quietly withdrawn. The minimum to avoid it is $1,500. You don't have $1,500, so the fee stays. You are paying a bank to hold the money you barely have. You log in and see it disappear overnight. No warning, no notification. The system doesn't explain, it executes. You apply for a credit card. They offer you a secured one. You have to give them $300 of your own money so they can lend it back and charge you 24% for the privilege. You read the offer twice. They want collateral from you to extend you credit from your own pocket. You don't take it, which means when your tire blows on a Tuesday morning, you can't put it on plastic. You ride the bus to work 3 hours late. Your manager doesn't fire you. He just looks at you a little longer than usual. You walk into the branch to ask about the fee. The teller is helping the customer in front of you, smiling, asking about their kids. When you step up, the smile changes, becomes professional, trained. The energy in the room shifts, and you feel yourself become a different category of person without anyone saying a word. She processes your request in 40 seconds, doesn't ask if there's anything else, doesn't tell you to have a nice day. The next person walks up, and the smile returns. You walk to the door and feel something you've never been able to name. You weren't refused, you weren't insulted, you were just moved through, like luggage on a belt. The bank doesn't see you as a customer at $200. The bank doesn't see you at all. You exist on their books. You don't exist in their attention. Level 3, $2,000. Something shifted, not in your account. In the way the bank looks at you. Your direct deposit hits every 2 weeks. $1,600 after taxes, consistent, predictable. The pattern you've held for 6 months is the only thing about you that interests the system. The maintenance fee disappears. Not because you asked, the system saw your direct deposit and waived it automatically. The first time it happens, you check 3 times to make sure. The same fee that drained your account for years just stopped existing. Nothing changed except your behavior matched a profile that earns the bank money, so they let you keep yours. The credit card offers start arriving. Real ones this time, not secured. Actual cards with $2,000 limits and 22% interest. The same institution that wouldn't approve you 8 months ago is now mailing you envelopes with your name printed in metallic ink, pre-approved. Like you became someone else overnight. You apply for one. Approved in 90 seconds. The notification feels strange. The same system that ignored you at $200 just said yes to you at $2,000. You didn't change. The number did. You walk into the branch and the teller says, "Good morning," before you reach the counter. Not the smile she gives the wealthy customer, but not the silence she gave you at $200 either. Something in between. Recognition without warmth, service without effort. The middle ground where most Americans live. You apply for a small loan. $5,000 for car repairs. Approved in 48 hours. The rate is 11%. Not great. Not terrible. The process worked the way the commercials always promised it would. You realize something nobody tells you. The bank doesn't care who you are. The bank cares what your account looks like. And at $2,000 your account looks like something they can sell things to. You're not invisible anymore. You're not respected either. You're profitable. Level 4. $15,000. You log into the app and notice the credit limit changed. $4,000 became $9,500. You didn't ask. You didn't apply. The bank just decided you were worth more rope. The next morning you get a call. Not automated. A person. Your bank assigned you a relationship banker. He says his name twice and gives you a direct line. He asks about your goals, your timeline, your savings. He wants to schedule a 15-minute review. The same institution that put you on hold for 40 minutes at $200 just dialed your number first thing on a Tuesday. The interest rate on your next loan drops. You buy a used car and the dealer pulls your credit. The rate that would have been 11% at $2,000 is 6.8% at $15,000. The price of money got cheaper, not because you negotiated, because you stopped being a risk. A fee shows up on your statement, $32. You email your banker. 3 hours later, it's reversed. No form, no phone tree, no script, just a reply that says, "Taken care of." The same fees that drained your account for years are now optional. The system didn't change. Your tier did. You start getting emails with your name spelled right. Subject lines that include first name, small touches, personalization. The bank is courting you now. Not aggressively, subtly. The way someone treats a person they don't want to lose. You realize something hidden from you at every level below this one. The bank wasn't mean to you when you were broke. The bank was just indifferent. And indifference at scale looks exactly like cruelty. You're not invested in. You're invested for. Level 5. $80,000. The bank calls you a preferred client now. The word shows up on your statements, on the welcome screen when you log in, on the email signature of the man who handles your account. You didn't earn the title. The number did. Your relationship banker becomes a real person now, a man named David who knows you have a sister in Chicago because you mentioned it once 9 months ago. He emails on your birthday. Not automated, written. The detail isn't accident, it's training. The bank teaches him to remember small things because small things keep accounts. You walk into the branch and someone stands up to greet you. Not the teller. Someone with a nameplate and an office. They guide you past the rope line where everyone else waits. The same line you waited in at $200. The line you didn't know existed because you were standing inside it. A pre-approval letter arrives in the mail, not for a credit card. For a $400,000 mortgage. The bank decided what you can afford before you decided to buy a house. They want the loan before you've even chosen the property. The price of money is no longer something you negotiate. It's something offered to you. You get a phone call from a competitor bank. They offer to match your rates and beat them on a savings tier. You mention this to David. He calls back within an hour with a counteroffer. The institution that ignored you for years is now competing to keep you. The bank doesn't see you as preferred at $80,000. The bank sees you as worth defending. Level 6, $500,000. The bank stops being a place you visit. It becomes a service that comes to you. David doesn't email anymore. David calls. And when he calls, he isn't asking how you are. He's asking when you'd like to meet his colleague who handles wealth management. The colleague drives to your office, not the other way around. He brings printed reports in a leather folder. He asks about your goals, your timeline, your tax structure, your estate plans. The conversation lasts 90 minutes, and at the end, he doesn't try to sell you anything. He just leaves a card and says he'll send a follow-up. The selling already happened. You just didn't notice it. You're not being offered products anymore. You're being consulted. The difference matters. A product is something the bank wants you to buy. A consultation is something the bank wants you to need, and needing them is worth more over time than buying from them once. You call about a wire transfer that froze. Someone answers on the second ring. No hold music, no script. The problem is fixed in the same conversation. The same call would have taken 3 hours and 4 transfers at $2,000. You attend a private dinner the bank hosts, 8 clients, a guest speaker, a view of the city you've never seen from this angle. Nobody mentions money the entire night. Money is the table, not the conversation. You're not a customer at $500,000. You're an asset they protect. Level 7, $5 million. Private banking. The phrase sounds the same as wealth management, but it isn't. Wealth management is a service. Private banking is a relationship. And relationships don't follow rules, they negotiate them. You don't have a banker anymore. You have a private banker. A title that means something specific inside the institution. He manages fewer than 20 accounts. Yours is one of them. He knows your kids' names. He knows about the foundation you're thinking about starting because you mentioned it over coffee last March. The interest rate on your mortgage isn't published. It's negotiated. The investment minimum on a private deal is waived because the relationship justifies it. The paperwork that takes a regular customer 2 weeks gets handled in 48 hours because someone was told whose account it is. You walk into a branch you've never visited, and they know your name before you sign anything. A different banker stands up to introduce himself. The system has flagged you across every location, not because of fame, because of position. You exist in a database that prioritizes you before you ask. You sit in a conference room with no logo on the door. The table is one piece of wood. The deal being discussed is a private investment that won't appear on any prospectus. The room exists because clients like you exist. The room only opens when the relationship justifies it. The bank doesn't follow rules at $5 million. The bank bends them. For you. Level 8, $25 million. You don't have a banker anymore. You have a relationship. And the difference between those two words is the difference between this level and every level below it. Your relationship is a named line item in someone's performance review. Losing you would matter to careers. The institution doesn't compete to keep you. The institution organizes itself around not losing you. 3 people inside the bank exist partially because of your account. They don't know that. You don't either. But the math is real. The deals are bespoke. Not a menu, not a brochure. Sentences written for one client. The interest rate on a loan is negotiated in a phone call. The terms of an investment are drafted to your timeline. You don't apply for things at $25 million. Things apply for you. Investments are brought to you before they're publicly available. Deals are structured around your participation before you've agreed to participate. But the real shift isn't access, it's influence. The bank doesn't just serve you, the bank consults you. The chief investment officer asks for your opinion on emerging markets. The head of private banking flies out to ask what kind of products their next tier of clients should expect. You're shaping the institution that once charged you $35 for being broke. The bank doesn't have a customer at $25 million. The bank has a partner, and the partner has a name. Yours. Somewhere right now, someone has a minus sign in front of their balance. They overdrafted by $4. A coffee they forgot was scheduled to charge. The fee hits within the hour, $35. They stare at the screen. They feel something that isn't anger, just tired. They try to call. The hold music loops. A voice answers. Reads from a script. Tells them fees can't be reversed at this time. They don't know yet that the system isn't broken. The system is working exactly the way it was built to. The same institution that will one day fly out to ask their opinion on emerging markets is currently charging them for not having enough. You are the same person at every balance. The bank just decides who you are, based on what's next to your name. The bank doesn't change at every level. The bank reveals what it always was.